The Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria are insisting that the federal government of Nigeria is paying fuel subsidies despite its contrary claims. Subsidy is gone. Remember those famous three words. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had declared on his inauguration day that his administration had abolished fuel subsidy payments. Nigeria's federal government has also doubled down on its claim afterwards. However, IPMAN, a major player in the petroleum industry in Nigeria, insists the Nigerian government is still paying a huge subsidy fee. Yesterday or 2 days ago, the CEO of the NNPCL, Medicare, came out to address the press to say it is not true. We are not paying subsidy. We are covering all our costs or recovering our costs. Tonight on Politics HQ, we take a look at this issue and its intricacies. Who is telling the truth? Is subsidy gone or not? Our guest tonight on Politics HQ is the chairman of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria in Rivers State, Dr. Joseph Obele. Thank you very much for your time.
Kofi, thank you for having me.
Right. In light of the recent statements by the NNPCL, its CEO and government officials, what's your response to the claim that subsidy is gone and that all the reports that the government is still paying subsidy are untrue?
Basically, let's start by establishing the fact that whoever is an advocate of the continuation of subsidy payment should be tagged the enemy of the nation. And hence, Mr. President has pronounced on the 29th of May that subsidy is gone. Nigerians have to adopt that position and move ahead likewise. So on the 29th of May, 1 hour after Mr. President took office, the first pronouncement he made was to declare that subsidy is gone. And arising from the turbulence and the happenings in the international market, talking about the external variables that was really posited by the Ukraine and Russia war. On that note, we discovered that the international market got a rise in price to crude oil, and foreign exchange was scarce then, and it was very difficult. So the first selling rate when Mr. President removed subsidy was about 510 naira. And when we saw this in the international market, it now became about 590 to 600 as it is now. Then 3 weeks after that, crude oil now moved from $80 per barrel to about 85 naira, or $85 per barrel. And on that note, the marketers, like this was early August 2023, the importers lamented that going forward, they will not be importing and selling at the real rate. Hence, landing cost then was close 700 naira per liter. So the NNPC came out with a statement. This was early August, and they said, we still maintain the point that, so I'm quoting the CEO of NNPC, that they still maintain the fact that subsidy is gone. But what they are paying, as referred to the books of NNPC, is differentials but not subsidy. And common sense in English will put to us that the meaning of the word subsidy is the government intervention in paying for the differentials, which is the gap between the buying rate and the selling rate. So he said what they are paying, this was August, was differentials but not subsidy. And the stakeholders of the industry took it to his table. Please justify what you mean by the word differentials and not subsidy. Now, following that, he came up again 2 days ago. He didn't use the word differentials this time. He never used the word subsidy. And he said, we are doing recovery for our importation costs, but subsidy is gone. So now let's take it up from here. We are doing recovery from our importation, cost of importation, and subsidy is gone. And I can put to you on good note that as at yesterday, landing cost was close 800 naira. And recall, on the 19th of July last year, Mr. President has since announced that NNPC have changed to a full commercialized venture, now called NNPC Limited. This implies that NNPC is now aimed at profiteering and is no longer a charitable organization, as stakeholders will be expect and stakeholders and shareholders will be expecting dividends at the AGM at the end of the year. So if this being the case, that we have justified that NNPC is not a charitable, or NNPC Limited is not a charitable organization, but a fully commercialized firm, and the landing cost is close 800, and the GND say we are doing recovery, but we are not paying subsidy. So the recovery they are doing, recall that the seller or the cheap dealer of the Nigerian crude oil is the NNPC. So he is the sole dealer selling crude oil for the federal government. So he can sell to the tune of like 10 kobo and subtract 3 kobo, putting that the 3 kobo I've subtracted is cost of the recovering from my landing cost of PMS. So we agree with him that they're no longer paying subsidy, but they are doing recovery. So this recovery implies that whatever it costs them regarding the importation, they will subtract it via the sales of crude oil and not give account to the federal government. So it's reflected in the books of NNPC that cost account for recovery. So that recovery is not really defined, because if you want to go further to define that recovery, you must trace it to further subsidy payment.
Okay. Dr. Obele, let's zero in. You've talked about the differentials, matter of some months ago. Interesting. You've also talked about the term cost recovery. Interesting. We'll come back to that at some point. But your colleagues, you in the industry, those of you who are petroleum marketers, are insisting that the current pump price of PMS should be higher if there was no subsidy. I want you to zero in on this a little bit and explain what the position of the marketers is on this matter.
You can recall that about 2 months ago, the Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority had licensed about 3 marketers. One, I'm very close to one, to engage in the importation of this oil from the international market to Nigeria port. This implies the dismantling of the NNPC as against the monopoly NNPC has enjoyed over the years. So to this point, the question we should be asking, how come the 3 marketers license are not importing? This justifies that these marketers have granted press interview to say cost of importation is over 700 naira per liter. Will you pay the differentials? And federal government saying no. So at the moment, NNPC have returned back the place of its monopoly to be the only importer of PMS to Nigeria right now, because there's a way of recovering that cost via the sales of crude oil. So the other marketers, since subsidy has been removed and no person will pay for the differentials or the gap, there is no how they will recover. But NNPC has the capacity of recovering, because with his right hand, he's selling crude oil for Nigeria. With his left hand, NNPC is importing PMS for Nigeria. So he will do it in and out balancing of whatever is leaving his right hand to that of the right hand, and the account will be balanced. So they are right by saying they are recovering, but they are not paying subsidy. And this further justifies that they are still paying, tactically, they are still paying subsidy behind the scene.
All right. Talking about this recovery, I don't know, you think you've zeroed in on that. So I want you to talk about the subsidy itself. What do you think, if you're saying that this cost recovery, it implies a subsidy in effect, what do you think the effect will be on the Nigerian economy, particularly the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry, and then generally the Nigerian economy?
See, the consumer pricing index, or call it inflation of Nigeria, is becoming worrisome and bringing untold hardship upon our people. So further subsidy payment through any tactical name you might call it, I think at this point is encouraging, because Nigerians buying fuel close 600 naira per liter is already biting hard upon the people. So further increment on PMS, I think I'm not really sure our people can really withstand it. So further, call it any name, but this government intervention, by intervention or by recovery, I think is encouraging at this very point, because any little amount to add on PMS right now, Nigerians cannot really stand this. So at this point, they should call it any name and keep doing whatever they are doing. But I can tell on good authority, they are still paying subsidy.
All right. So you're saying that this is good for the Nigerian economy for now, to prevent things from sliding or getting worse than they currently are. But what is the difference between
No, let's get this right. It's
Yes.
not good for the economy, but it's good for the people of Nigeria.
Well,
Differentiate the
how do you
economy
mean?
and
What
the
do you
people of
mean by that,
Nigeria.
Dr. Obele?
No, further increment on PMS as recall that all commodities in Nigeria market revolves around this single commodity called PMS. So further increment on PMS, we aggravate every other cost of every other commodity, and people cannot bear it anymore. So it's good for the citizens, but not really good for the economy, because a chunk of money will be pulled out from other sectors to do that recovery, quote unquote. They call it recovery. So it's good for the citizens, but not really good for the economy.
Quite interesting. What's the difference between this subsidy, as you call it, and the one that existed before the president said Otilo in English? Subsidy is gone.
Okay, the difference is that before now, it was holistic or total subsidy regime, 100% subsidy. Cost of importation minus the government pays the total differential. But at this moment, it's partial subsidy. The consumer is paying half, while government is paying little.
All right. Some have said that the government should just have left things as they were. At least Nigerians were not paying 700 naira, 600 naira, 500 naira for petrol. Now we're looking at 500 in some states, 600. I mean, a driver I know was telling me that he spent about 600 and something naira in River State, where you are. So some are saying maybe they should just have left it as it was till they got things right. I don't know what you think about that. It's at least fixed the refineries and all that. What do you say to that?
I think in River State, the commodity is selling between 590, 600, and 610. No person is buying in River State above 610. And I think scarcity is building up gradually, arising from supply gap. The total trucks requested by marketers, the independent marketers on my table, is close to 200 trucks per day, but they barely supply over 30 trucks per day. Yesterday, we got less than 20 trucks per day, and he's biting out gradually. Out of the 19 depots we have in Rivers State, just one right now is with stock and servicing marketers. And it's not really servicing marketers in Rivers State, it's servicing marketers around the south and southeast region of Nigeria. So this indicates that from information we have, that there's a supply gap in Abuja and Lagos, the queues, and even in northern part of Nigeria, the queues are building up gradually. And recall, this is close to the festive period where Christians will be celebrating, and a lot of people have been insinuating that basically, whenever it's close to this time celebration that concerns the Christendom, that we are always seeing, but I wouldn't want to take that narrative anyway, but it's becoming justified that whenever it comes to Christmas season of such, that Christians will always face a hard time, call it for scarcity.
Joseph, give us a breakdown of the cost, since the NNPC says it's doing cost recovery. It was mentioned that the landing cost of petrol is 720 naira per liter. I heard you say 700. So, and you have to clarify which it is, if it's 700
I
or
say
700.
It's close 800 naira per liter.
Okay, closer
it's
to
close 800 naira per liter. Now,
right.
Whatever
Yeah,
happens
give us
to
a cost
crude
breakdown
oil,
from the port to the pump.
yes, whatever affects, now, let me put this to you. Whatever is the total cost of crude oil, the cost of commodity is just 25%. And this is why we are saying, if landing cost is close 800 naira and the cost of commodity is close 25%, meaning the cost of the product, buying this product in the Nigerian market, which is Netherlands, is close to 250, 300 naira per liter. Now, add the cost of the mother vessel that we shipping it, as the cost of the foreign port charges, the port where you'll be doing the importation. Now, the vessel cannot really bet at the Lagos port, hence the vessel will be anchoring at the high sea, Atlantic Ocean. Then other baby vessels will be going to do the transshipping. So add the cost of the baby vessels, add the cost of the mother vessels, then at the port, you must pay port charges. So all these costs could have been eliminated as the cost of crude oil, cost of foreign exchange. Now, the total holistic 7 components constitute this very cost, add the variable cost and the overhead costs from the operations. So when our refineries are functional, only 3 of these costs, only 2 out of the 7 will be used for the proration or the computation, which is cost of crude oil and the cost of production. So we won't have any business with cost of mother vessel, baby vessel, foreign port charges, and the cost of every other cost will be eliminated. Basically, it will be the cost of crude oil and the cost of production. So this justifies why we are saying that Nigerians will buy fuel less than 300 naira per liter when our refineries are functional. Regarding the refinery at Port-Harcourt, my host community and the state where we do the 50,000 production capacity, the oldest refinery in Nigeria, I can give you on good note that Mr. President, since he made this demanded by pronouncing that the refinery will be functional by December, I think they've reinforced the workforce, machineries inside, and the equipment and everything. The job at the moment is encouraging, And Whitey Silva was the then minister. The job wasn't really encouraging. It was going at a snail speed. But right now, I can tell you it's going at a jet speed.
Interesting you brought up Timi Silva. But so is this I'll come back to because I want to know the ex-depot price. I'll come back to that. But it's interesting you brought up the refineries. There are two in Port-Harcourt. So the one that is being renovated, as I think that's what they call it, or rehabilitated by the Italian company whose name I can't recollect.
Tecnimont.
Sorry?
Tecnimont.
Yes, Tecnimont, yeah.
Yes.
Is it a smaller refinery or the bigger one?
The proposed schedule, commencement schedule, is the smaller one, which is 50,000 production capacity per day, should commence by December. The first quarter of next year, the bigger one, which is 200 production capacity per day, should commence as a production capacity of 60% production capacity, and the end of the year, 80%, and early 2025, the full production capacity. That's the work schedule.
Okay, but we heard that before Buhari left, the rehabilitation had reached maybe 90 or 80% completion. It was just left with some sort of government counterpart funding to releasing funds to complete it. Is that the case, or was that the case?
There was no commitment, there was no determination to see the refinery working until Mr. President Tinubu announced that the refinery will be functional December. That was when we really saw commitment, motivation, reinforcement, and until also the recent Minister of State for Petroleum, not Timi Silva, visited the site, we saw a reinforcement. I think we should give kudos to the present Minister of State for Petroleum.
Okay.
The speed under his time is like the speed of jet. The speed of the operation under Timi Silva should be described as the speed of snail.
All right, Dr. Obele, before I move on to the final few questions, what's the current...
And I recall that Timi Silva told Nigerians that the refinery will commence operation December last year. He failed. He told Nigerians it will commence first quarter of this year. He failed. He announced again before his resignation that it will commence operation by second quarter of this year. He failed. So on three notes, and to me as a person, if you can say a word and your word is not your bond and you can't stand by a word, you lack credibility.
All right. You're not just the IPMAN chairman, you also hail from the host community for the refinery. I think that's what you meant. What's the current ex-depot price of petrol?
For now, marketers are buying at 5, 6, 7, if you see to buy, but we've not seen it anywhere. Today, no marketer was able to buy. Throughout this week, no marketer has been able to buy. I'm telling you, the NNPC is out of stock, and we have supply gap, and scarcity is building up gradually, and it's beginning to. A lot of stations are shutting down today. More than 54 stations actually shut down. I saw the text message on our platform, and it's really, really not welcoming as that. But regarding the ex-depot price, it will be. I think we can't really see it right now to buy. We can't even really see it right now to buy. That's no product anyway.
Because I heard, yes, Medicare saw, his refrain for the past few months has been, we have enough in stock to supply the country.
No.
Even before the strike. But the recent statement, go on,
investigate further by giving us a list of where these products are. So I'll move our trucks out to buy. We want to buy. I'm telling you, we're out of stock.
Hmm. All right.
When
So
that
you're
success
advising
story
people to
announced on
go
Nigerians that
and stock up petrol in their cars. But in the last 24 hours, I think yesterday, the latest he said was that the epileptic fuel supply, now he's admitted, is to be blamed on the poor roads around the country. That's what he said. He's blaming it on the poor roads around the country. He also dismissed speculations. Okay, I'm just going to leave that one out. So, what do you say to this? Because he spoke to journalists at State House. Where, yeah.
Kofi, basically, the rationale behind that visit was to tell them cost of importation and the selling rate, the differentials that is becoming alarming. Is a cost of importation is close 800, hence they are selling 590, meaning further subsidy payment will be close 210, 230 per liter. That's the essence behind that visitation at Asoro. So it could be that where do we have this product, and let bad road be the reason. Now, 3 months ago, there was no queue anywhere. We were distributing around the whole nooks and crannies of Nigeria. So how come this bad road is just 3 months old? The reason, because of the external variables at the international market, has further up the cost of importation. The burden is becoming so much on them. So, and they are so careful because of the tension in the nation to say, hey, consumers should pay total cost of the importation. Hence, they have pegged it at whatever it is right now, which is close 590, 600, depending the state you are. You mentioned road. If there's one road that is bad in Nigeria, should be the Eleme Express Road. And people are saying, and this is the road leading to the refinery, the road leading to the FOT on there, FAT on there.
That's the element axis of the East-West Road.
And leading to the Eleme East-West Road. And so people are saying, if we are committed that this refinery should commence operation by December 2023, what about this road? The deplorable state of the road, it will be a time bomb waiting for its detonation time if nothing is done about that road at the moment. So if we are committed and we don't want to use that road as an excuse, as again the mandate of Mr. President towards December, what is happening about the road? Again, I have to give it also to the past governor of Rivers State and the present governor of Rivers State on a thank you visit to Mr. President. One request they made was the East-West Road, and 2 days later, the Minister of Road announced that 33 billion has been released for the dualization of the East-West Road. And I think 2-3 days ago, we have seen ROCC, the contractor, on site commencing construction. So
Dr. Joseph Obele, I hope it won't be like what happened when Godswill Akpabio, then Minister of Niger Delta, came. When your people organized a protest and barricaded the road, he came and then talked to youth. Days. And then afterwards, when he placated the youth and said they're going to fix the road and build, 2 flyovers or something like that. After you left, he came with tractors and bulldozers, and that was the end. We never saw him again. So I hope this is not going to happen.
Akpabio deceived the people of Niger Delta, and in that regard, he deceived himself too.
All right, Dr. Joseph Obele, I want to thank you so much for your time and for your insight, as always. We definitely will have you back again. Joseph Obele is a PhD, is the chairman of IPMAN in Rivers State Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. He's a lecturer at the Ignatius Ajuri University of Education, also lecturer at the Ken Saro-Wiwa Polytechnic in Bori, and he was a governorship candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, in the recent Rivers governorship election. We'll talk about that some other day. Thank you very much, Joseph, for your time.
Kofi, thank you for having me.